All right, so welcome to another deep dive. And today,
Yeah.
we're tackling some serious philosophy.
Yeah, we're getting philosophical.
We are.
Yeah.
And specifically, we're looking at
Jaina philosophy.
Jaina philosophy.
Yeah.
And to do that, we have the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy entry on Jaina philosophy.
Right. One of the best sources out there.
Yeah, it is excellent.
To get a really in-depth overview.
Yeah, so the mission today, I think, is for everyone to walk away with a good understanding of the core ideas and some of the surprising insights.
Absolutely. And I think what we'll find is that it's not just an abstract set of theories, right? This is really about
Yeah.
a way of life, a way of acting in the world.
Yeah, it's a practical philosophy. And it's really interesting how I think a lot of people, when they hear Jaina philosophy, they maybe think of nonviolence first.
Right.
But it's all kind of aiming towards this idea of liberation from rebirth, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the way to get there is not by changing the external world. It's really about self-transformation, right? So it's through these practices of self-sacrifice and, really intense
Asceticism.
asceticism, exactly.
Yeah, there's this idea of samyak karita, this correct conduct,
Right.
which is like the ultimate self-control.
Yeah.
And then, they have these 12 contemplations, the anupraka, which are meant to kind of help you cultivate this mindset.
Yeah, it's a mental training, right? To detach from the world. And they do this by, contemplating the impermanence of things, right? The fact that, we're all limited in some way.
Yeah.
That spiritual freedom is really an individual journey.
Yeah, that's such a fascinating point, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're on your own path,
You're on your own.
but also the kind of fleeting nature of all of our relationships.
Absolutely.
And that suffering is just like a part of empirical reality. And then even this idea of the body as being impure.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's
Not a very rosy picture.
not a rosy picture,
Yeah.
but I think we can see why that's meant to kind of propel people towards this.
Right. This desire to break free.
Yeah, this desire to break free. And okay, so now let's talk about ahimsa nonviolence,
Right.
which maybe many people think of when they think of Jainism, but it's really interesting how it stems from this idea that all beings,
Have a jiva.
yeah,
This, pure self,
yeah,
unobstructed consciousness that's kind of trapped in this temporary physical form.
right. And so you're not harming just the body when you're harming something, but you're harming this like fundamental part of them.
Exactly. You're harming this divine spark within every living being.
Right. And so it becomes this imperative. It goes so far beyond just not eating meat.
Yeah.
They meticulously filter their water
Right.
to avoid, harming microorganisms.
Right.
They're incredibly careful when they walk.
Yeah.
And their whole understanding of violence is incredibly nuanced, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just physical harm. It's even just thinking about harming.
Yeah.
Or asking someone else to harm.
Right.
Or condoning harmful actions. And it can be physical, verbal, even mental violence.
Right. So that's a whole other level of...
Ethical awareness.
Yeah. And then, they have this whole classification of living beings based on the number of senses they possess.
Right. So you've got...
Starting with one.
So plants, right? Even the elements.
Yeah.
And then 2 senses, 3 senses, all the way up to...
5 senses. And what's really interesting is that for Jainis, only humans can actually achieve liberation.
Right. So even though, a god might have a pretty nice time,
Yeah.
up in the heavens,
It's not
that's
the ultimate goal.
Well, yeah.
Right. And so this is what they call like reasoned anthropocentrism. It's not that humans are like
Inherently superior.
superior, but just that's the state in which you can achieve this. And it's not about
Some cosmic hierarchy, right?
Yeah, and I mean this idea of nonviolence even extends to like breathing can be harmful.
Right.
So it's really taken to
An extreme.
an extreme. Yeah.
And it's interesting also how they use these lists, right, to order their thinking. Like you mentioned the Stanaga Sutra, you've got lists of,
Yeah.
2 things, self and non-self, but then,
Yeah.
it goes all the way up to like 10.
And this idea of what binds us to rebirth,
Yeah.
it seems like it evolved over time.
Yeah.
Where initially it was very focused on
The act of violence.
Yeah.
But then later,
intention.
the intentions and the passions became much more important.
And it's in that context that this idea of many-sidedness starts to emerge, right? Like
Right.
what might be harmful from one perspective
Yeah.
might be permissible from another. And that really leads into this whole idea of non-absolutism that we'll talk about later.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so now to kind of get to the the foundation of their system,
Yeah.
we have to look at the tattvas, right? The categories of reality, and the dravyas, the substances.
Right.
And the key text for this is the Tattvartha Sutra, which we'll just call the TS.
The T.
And so what this does is it really lays out these core principles.
Yeah.
And it starts by defining the path to liberation,
Okay.
which is, right view, right knowledge, and right conduct.
And right view being this confidence in
In these categories in the system.
Yeah. Okay. So what are the categories?
Yeah, so there are 7 categories, and they are the self, jiva,
Okay.
non-self, ajiva,
Okay.
inflow of karmic matter, asroa,
Okay.
bondage, bandha,
Bondage of
the karmic matter to the self,
to the self. Yeah.
stoppage, savara, so stopping that inflow,
Mm-hmm.
destruction, nirjara, which is, getting rid of the karma that's already there,
Right.
and then liberation, moksha.
Okay. And then the substances,
Yes, so the substances are
the dravyas.
the dravyas, exactly, and there are 6 of them. So
Okay.
you've got self,
Okay.
the medium of motion, which is dharma, and again,
Not like
religious duty.
not religious duty, but like the principle of motion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The medium of rest, adhama. Space, akoja,
Mhm.
matter, pudgala.
Okay.
And in some Jaina schools' time, kala is also considered a substance.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so it's interesting to think about how most of these categories, except for self and non-self,
Yeah.
are really
It's
about
a relationship.
the relationship between the self and the non-self.
Right. And this constant kind of interplay between
Yeah, exactly.
this
Yeah.
active self and these more passive
Yeah.
elements. And it really brings us back to, why is this important? It's important for this path to liberation.
Exactly right. So it's not just an abstract
Mhm.
intellectual exercise. It's about, okay, how do we actually progress on this path?
Yeah. How do we become liberated?
Exactly. And
Mm.
and so this fundamental distinction between what's, animate and conscious and what's inanimate and non-conscious.
Yeah.
That's really key, right, for understanding
Yeah.
how our actions have an impact.
And the idea of liberation, this moksha, what does that actually mean in Jaina philosophy? Because they talk about it as like this unobstructed knowledge.
Right. Yeah, and the practices are really all geared towards
Yeah.
removing these wrong perceptions.
Right, Sietha.
Ethiketva, right?
Mm.
And they define the self, the upayoga, quite simply as experience.
Experience.
And they divide that into cognition, jnana,
Okay.
and this more indeterminate perception, darshana.
Darshana. Okay, so spiritual progress is both, behaving correctly, but also this epistemic
Right.
advancement.
Advancement, exactly.
And so this is where karma comes back in. And karma is not just some like abstract force in Jaina philosophy.
Mhm.
It's like this subtle matter that carries the consequences of our actions.
Right.
And our passions are what kind of make it stick to the self.
Yes, and the word for passion, raga, literally means red.
Right.
So you can think of it as this sticky red substance that
Huh.
kind of clings to the self.
Yeah. And so by, shedding these passions, by acting with equanimity,
Yeah.
that's how you actually
Get rid of the karma.
get rid of the karma and achieve right knowledge, right vision.
Right. So it's really about shifting from seeing things through this kind of distorted lens of our passions to seeing things clearly as they are.
Right. And so we can see how it's all interconnected, right? Like
Yeah.
ethical behavior leads to less karma,
Right.
which then leads to
More knowledge.
more knowledge,
Yeah.
and even the way they understand the universe,
Right.
the loka.
Is that which is seen by the omniscient one?
Right.
Right. So it's not just this neutral backdrop.
Right.
It's actually tied into this whole system of
Yeah.
ethical behavior and consequences, and even a clod of earth
Yeah.
has, its existence.
Yeah. It all goes back to karma.
is tied up with karma.
Yeah. And so let's go a little bit more into their metaphysics, because we said that it's this dualistic system,
Yeah.
but it seems like it differs from maybe the Sakya school in some important ways.
Yeah. So they both believe in this fundamental distinction between self and non-self.
Right.
The way they understand the self is quite different.
Okay. How so?
Yeah. So in Jaina philosophy, the self is this active consciousness, right? It's
Okay.
what experiences
Yeah.
cognition and perception, what desires, feels pain, and acts,
Yeah.
and experiences the consequences of those actions.
Yeah.
And that's really crucial for their understanding of ethical responsibility.
Right. Because if the self were passive, like in Sakya,
Right.
then
It wouldn't really matter what you do.
right.
Right. So that's why they critique this idea of a creator god,
Exactly.
Pravada, or even, fatalism,
Yeah.
because it all undermines this idea of individual
Agency.
moral agency.
Right. And so each individual self is this distinct thing, and that continues
Even in liberation.
in liberation, which is different from
Yeah.
some other.
Other traditions,
Yeah.
yeah. So they believe that there are, as many selves as there are living beings,
And they all stay separate.
and they all stay separate. And there's a fixed number of selves.
Interesting. And then this idea of the non-self, the ajiva.
Right.
What does that encompass?
Yeah, so that's everything that's not the self, right?
Yeah.
So it includes matter.
Matter. Okay.
And then these principles of organization, so space, akasha,
Okay.
is this all-pervading substance, and it's what contains both the lota, which is like the inhabited universe, and the aloka, which is the void beyond that.
Okay.
And a pradesh is basically a point of space.
Okay.
But they also say that space alone isn't enough for movement and rest to happen.
Okay.
So that's where we get dharma and atharma.
Okay. So not religious duty, but
Right, but the principle,
Yeah.
of motion and rest.
Okay.
So it's like the analogy they use is a fish swimming in water.
Okay.
So just as water is necessary for the fish to swim,
Yeah.
dharma and atharma are necessary for any kind of movement or rest to occur.
Okay.
And so it's interesting how they kind of physicalize this concept of dharma, which in other traditions is more about,
Ethical behavior.
right, religious duty.
Yeah.
But here it's like a principle of physics almost.
Yeah. And so space dharma and adharma.
Are all unified,
Okay.
non-physical, non-atomic, and continuous.
So they don't have parts.
They don't have parts.
And they're only really distinguished by their function.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then matter pudgala.
Yeah, so that's what makes up our bodies,
Okay.
our speech, the workings of our minds, even our breath.
Yeah.
And importantly, karma is also seen as a type of subtle matter.
Right. And so this ties into their understanding of impermanence.
Yeah.
Because only matter can kind of.
Associate and dissociate,
Ooh, yeah.
come together and fall apart.
Right. So the self is not
Right, the self is partless.
partless, and so are space dharma and adharma.
Exactly.
Okay. And this whole physics of karma,
Yeah.
they have it's very complex and detailed.
It's incredibly detailed.
Yeah.
So, they have all these calculations about the mass,
Yeah.
the duration, the intensity
Of karmic part.
of these karmic particles. And they divide karma into these two main categories, right? So you have the gatya karmas, which are the harming karmas,
Yeah.
and then the agati karmas, which are the non-harming karmas.
And the harming karmas are things like delusory knowledge obstructing, perception obstructing.
Yeah, mohaniya, janavaranya,
Okay.
navaranya, antaraya,
Right. And then the non-harming karmas are things like
feeling producing vidanya,
yeah.
name determining naman,
Yeah.
lifespan determining azus, and status determining gotra.
Okay. And what about time, Kala? Because that seems to
Yeah.
treat it a little bit different.
Yeah, it's not always considered a substance in the strict sense because
Okay.
it doesn't have this kind of physical extension that the other substances have.
Right.
But it's still seen as this principle that accounts for
For change.
change becoming. And
Yeah.
so they distinguish between this absolute time, which is eternal and changing,
Yeah.
and then this relative time.
Which is like the
Conventional time
flow of events.
that we experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they even refer to time as the great destroyer because
Yeah.
everything in the cosmos is subject to its
It's cycles.
cyclical progression.
Okay. And so their atomistic view, this idea of atoms.
Yeah, so they believe in these fundamental atoms called parama,
Panama.
and they're kind of like the building blocks of reality.
Okay. And it sounds like that's similar to the Nyavaishika school.
It is similar, but a key difference is that they don't believe in a creator god.
Right.
So in Vaishika, there's Ishvara,
Yeah.
who kind of orchestrates the association of atoms.
Uh-huh.
But in Jainism, atoms have always existed,
Okay.
and they just interact according to natural laws.
Right. And so, again, this really emphasizes this idea of
Individual ethical
agency. Yeah.
responsibility.
So both selves and matter are considered types of atoms.
Yes. So cells are kind of a unique type of atom
Okay.
that have consciousness, and then matter exists either as individual atoms or as these aggregates called skanda.
Skanda.
Yeah.
Okay. And they think that atoms of the same type are initially
Undifferentiated.
undifferentiated.
And then they develop qualities like taste, color, smell.
through their combinations.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. And they have this idea that atoms can move.
Instantaneously across the universe.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're pretty
Advanced physics.
advanced. Yeah. And then this idea of atoms themselves being able to contract and expand.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So the self is said to be coextensive with the body.
Like a lamp illuminating a space.
Exactly.
And then they even have this idea of samagata, which
Where
is
the self can actually
Like project itself.
project itself beyond the body.
Wow. Okay. And so now let's talk about this really detailed classification of living beings, this reasoned anthropocentrism that you were talking about.
Right. So this is where they get into, the taxonomy of life, and it's
Yeah.
all based on the number of senses that a being has.
Starting with one.
Starting with one.
And so we've got plants,
Plants, elemental beings.
earth, water,
Yeah.
fire, air.
Those are all one sense.
One sense.
Then you've got two-sensed beings like worms and mollusks.
Okay.
Three-sensed beings like ants.
Uh-huh.
Four-sensed beings like bees.
Yeah.
And then five-sensed beings.
Which are like us.
Humans, animals.
Other animals.
Yeah, and even deities.
Okay.
And so for them, intellect manas is seen as a potential sixth sense
For some of the...
for some of the five-sensed beings.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that their word for soul jiva is much broader than...
The English word animal.
Yeah, so it includes plants and even elemental beings.
Yeah. And they have a specific term for
Mobile animals.
mobile animals, which is Tiryanya.
Tyrion, exactly.
Yeah. And so this whole idea of classifying beings,
Yeah,
it has really important implications for their principle of non-harming.
right. Because
Because the consequences depend on...
on how many senses a being has.
Yeah. And so lay practitioners,
Generally avoid harming two or more sensed beings,
two or more sensed beings.
but monks and nuns
Let's extend that to...
to one-sensed beings as well.
So even plants.
Even plants.
Wow. And so that's why they have to have this kind of system of...
Shared merit and demerit
Right.
between the lay community and the monastic community.
Okay, so let's go back to this interplay between self and karma,
Yeah.
because you were talking about how it's this dynamic dualism.
Right.
And so each self is eternal, but it's also
Constantly changing.
constantly changing.
Experiencing different states.
And so this idea of something being both permanent and
Yeah, and changing.
is really central to their worldview.
Yeah, and so even beings who have achieved omniscience, the highest form of knowledge, they still
They
experience
still experience variations in consciousness.
it like
Yeah, it's just that their consciousness is now
perfect.
perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
And so change happens both at the level of matter,
Right.
but also at the level of the self.
Of the self. And so this idea of life karma,
Right.
that's a good example of this.
Yeah, so they see death not as an end, but as this kind of reappraisal of the self.
of the relationship with matter.
Yeah, entanglement with matter.
And it's all governed by karma.
Right, so
The fruition of your life, karma, is what actually causes your death.
even in what seem to be accidents?
Even in accidents.
Yeah.
Right.
So your actions in a past life determine how long you live in this life,
Okay.
but then your actions in this life determine how long you live in your next life.
So it's this constant kind of cycle. Yeah.
And so the last thoughts and actions that you have before you die
Are very important.
are super important.
And that's why they have this practice of salakana, which is,
It's basically a ritual fast to kind of prepare for death.
yeah, to achieve a good death.
A good death, exactly.
And the transition after death is instantaneous.
It's instantaneous because the next birth is already determined
Okay.
by the karma.
So there's no
In-between state.
no in-between state.
Yeah.
And so this idea of sedimentation is what they use to kind of explain
How the past entanglements kind of influence the future
future. Yeah.
entanglements.
And you were saying that there are different perspectives on this relationship between the self and karma within Jaina philosophy?
Yeah, so the Tattvartha Sutra talks about them intermingling.
Like liquids.
Like liquids.
Yeah.
But then Kundakunda,
Kundipun.
who's another Jaina philosopher,
Yeah.
he says that they never really mix.
Okay.
So it's more like...
So more like the Sakya view.
Yeah, but they still maintain this idea of the active self,
Right.
which is important.
Okay.
And so they use analogies like, a king influencing his subjects,
Yeah.
or a red flower reflecting in a crystal,
Yeah.
to kind of illustrate how the karma,
Yeah, it doesn't actually change the
it doesn't change the self,
self, but it kind of
influences it.
influences it. Yeah.
But the main point is that in both perspectives, the self and karma remain distinct.
Distinct.
And the universe is seen as this,
This whole, where everything's kind of interconnected.
yeah, this interconnected,
Yeah.
well,
Okay, so let's talk about how Jainas view the universe itself.
yeah, so they believe in an eternal universe,
Eternal.
no beginning, no end.
Okay.
And it undergoes these vast cosmic cycles.
Cosmic cycle.
Billions of years long.
And so we're talking like descending and ascending.
Yeah, descending and ascending periods.
Okay.
And so in the descending periods, there's, decline in prosperity,
Yeah.
happiness, morality. And then in the ascending periods,
Things get better.
things get better.
And liberation is only possible during
Certain phases.
of these cycles.
Yeah.
And where are we now?
So right now we're considered to be in a fifth descending period.
Fifth descending period.
Which began after the passing of Cunness.
Okay.
And so it's not really a great time to achieve liberation.
Okay.
Because things are kind of
Unstable?
Yeah.
And so they have these 24 omniscient beings called the Jainas.
Or
Tirthakas, who are like Ford makers.
Yeah, they're like guides across this
sea of suffering.
Sea of suffering, exactly.
And Mahavira
Was the last Tirthakara
of our current
age.
age.
Yeah, and so these beings, they have complete knowledge of everything.
But they can't intervene in the world. And so
Yeah.
their teaching happens
During this intermediate period.
when they've shed some karma, but not all of it.
Exactly.
And their disciples then
become the interpreters.
of
the teachings.
And so lineage is very important.
Yeah, lineage and commentary.
And commentaries are very important.
Yeah.
And so the Jaina model of the universe is,
Very detailed.
yeah, it's got the Loka, the inhabited world,
And then the Aloka,
which is
the empty space beyond.
Dion. And so within the Loka, there are
Island continents.
continents,
Oceans.
hellish abodes, heavenly realms.
Yeah, and humans only live in Middle Earth, or Jambudvipa.
Jambudvipa.
And that's the only place where liberation is possible.
So again, this reasoned anthropocentrism,
Yeah.
but their position in the universe is actually very small.
Yes, so it emphasizes this rarity of human birth.
Yeah, okay. And then later on, they even started depicting the universe
As a human being.
Yeah. And so this really detailed cosmology.
It reinforces their values.
Yeah.
As a symbol of their identity.
Yeah. And it's also like a guide for their practices.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so now we come to Jaina epistemology, how they understand knowledge.
Right.
And since the self is defined by consciousness, this is obviously very important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so the Tattvavarsa Sutra presents these different classifications of knowledge.
So 4 types of indeterminate perception, 8 types of cognition.
Okay.
Ranging from, ordinary sense perception to
Yeah.
this absolute knowledge.
Okay, but then the distinction between indeterminate perception and cognition.
Was later discarded by most
By most?
Jaina epistemologists.
When they also integrated
The Nyaya system's 5 means of knowledge.
the pramats.
The pramachas, yeah.
And so for Jainas, all valid knowledge comes from
Contact with what exists.
contact with what exists, either directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
And they even redefine the term pratyaya, which in other systems means perception to mean
Direct knowledge of the soul.
direct knowledge of the soul. Interesting. Oh,
So
they're
taking these existing terms and
and giving them their own spin.
And so how do they explain cognitive error?
Yeah, so they say that it comes from this wrong perception, mithya darshana,
Would be that Arshana.
which is caused by knowledge obstructing karma.
Oh, okay.
So basically, if your consciousness is clouded by karma,
Yeah.
you're more likely to make mistakes.
And so this idea of authoritative teaching apta is very important because it's how we can access knowledge that
Beyond our ordinary senses,
yeah
by relying on the teachings of these liberated beings. And so they define authoritative discourse as,
one that's uttered by a liberated teacher, the apta.
okay, and so this is different from like everyday testimony.
Exactly.
This is specifically
This
about,
knowledge of the path to liberation and the nature of reality.
okay, and how does this differ from the Vedic view?
Yeah. So in the Vedic tradition, authoritative discourse is seen as
Non-human.
non-human in origin.
Okay, but for Jainas,
It comes from these liberated beings.
who are still embodied,
Right. So it's during this kind of
interim period,
interim period.
and then their
So
disciples
that once you transmit
those teachings.
teaching.
And so this is why lineage is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the Ratnakara and Shavakakara actually describes the qualities of a reliable teacher.